Joining the SEIYUU industry, or in simple terms, the voice acting industry in Japan, is a dream for many foreigners. Working in anime is also a big dream. Whether it is to become a voice actor, a manager, or work in animation or sound engineering, there is no shortage of jobs in and connected with this side of the entertainment industry in Japan. But how can you join the animation industry? Let's kick off this episode of SEIYUU Lounge. Welcome to SEIYUU Lounge. I am your host Vanessa, and today's topic is: how can you join the animation industry as a foreigner? This is a question I get quite frequently. However, despite how my relationship may be with some managers and music labels in Japan, I've never set foot in the SEIYUU or animation industries, being only a mere person that owns a website and occasionally collaborates with music labels and talent agencies. With that being said, I can bring you my experience trying to make the hand that feeds HQ recognized in Japan as part of the media covering SEIYUU, as well as what I've talked about with two managers close to me that are currently managing SEIYUU in Japan. I won't disclose who the managers are, nor who they are managing right now, but do know that the information I'm sharing with you is the real thing. So let's talk a bit about this topic. The SEIYUU industry is not foreigner-friendly. Voice acting is a staple of Japan, just like how animation is. There are dedicated schools and courses, and the talent that graduates from those is, more often than not, vastly superior to that of voice actors from any other country. Whether this is because Japanese people are perfectionists or because they live anime and games in a different way from us, foreigners, is something no one really knows. What is well known, however, is that voice acting in Japan is for Japanese voice actors. It makes sense, it's their native language. But you will say, anyone that speaks Japanese fluently could become a voice actor in Japan. And you are not wrong. You could become a voice actor in Japan, however, the path is incredibly difficult. Some might say, purposely to favor domestic over international talent. And that's because Japanese are really proud of their talent. The voice acting industry in Japan is an example of excellence. Seeing as voice acting in Japan is almost exclusively done in Japanese, there is of course a bias towards getting native Japanese talents to voice characters in anime. There are exceptions, and you may be thinking about those at the moment. But do know that they are but exceptions, they are not the rule. If you join the SEIYUU industry, be ready to be different. A foreigner trying to get into voice acting won't be treated as special. You will have to go through their voice acting schools, be fluent in Japanese, and with quite the advanced knowledge in kanji if you want to impress, and be ready to be treated as someone that doesn't belong for most of your path in the industry. You'll have to work extra hard to prove yourself in order for, basically, others in the industry to take you seriously and not just as another foreigner that likes anime and thinks becoming a voice actor is easy. Depending on the job you want to have connected to the voice acting industry, because not everything is voice acting, there are a lot of people around voice actors themselves, the reactions to your presence may be fairly different. Voice actors, as long as they are fluent in Japanese and know their etiquette, will be somewhat treated as equal by other SEIYUU. managers may be looked at the wrong way. There are a couple of SEIYUU managers that are not Japanese, and some mention that on some occasions they were stopped by security because foreigners were not meant to be there. Turns out they were managing the SEIYUU that had just passed the security cordon. If you're getting into sound directing, I'd say this is where you'd feel most at home. It is required that you are insanely good at sound engineering and can make the director's instructions come to life, as well as making the voice actors shine. So, which jobs are best recommended to foreigners trying to get into the SEIYUU industry? Simply put, you have voice acting, talent management, sound engineering, and translation. These are the big jobs in this industry. You can, however, and this is adjacent, be a music producer or composer in Japan linked or represented by a Japanese music label. All these jobs require that you know how to speak, read, and understand Japanese in different degrees. As a foreigner, how can you become a SEIYUU? If you want to become a voice actor in Japan, the best way is to be fluent in Japanese and be ready for auditions that will test your reading, singing, dancing, and acting skills. Have all of those nailed down. Of course, the SEIYUU industry has been changing quite a lot in the last couple of years. Although still very few, there are some SEIYUU or more SEIYUU of foreign descent or foreigners active as SEIYUU in Japan. At the same time, don't forget that the voice acting industry in Japan is no longer only about the voice and the talent that comes from mimicking or having different nuances to your voice. Those are essential, but do not forget that if you want to really become popular, right now you need to also have the perfect looks, or at least looks similar to those that are currently popular as SEIYUU. So while not impossible at the moment, becoming a SEIYUU is actually quite the arduous path for a foreigner. And how to become a SEIYUU manager? If you want to be a manager for SEIYUU, you need to be fluent in Japanese. That's the bare minimum. After all, you will be working almost 24/7 with the SEIYUU you will be managing. Literally, they will be like your family in under a month. With that being said, being able to understand, being understood, and being there for the talent you are managing is essential. And it starts with you being fluent in Japanese. Then you need to be extremely organized and be prepared to not have free time or a personal life. Your life is your SEIYUU's life. But let's keep things simple. A good way to enter this side of the SEIYUU industry is to become a translator. Yes, believe it or not, becoming a translator is an open door towards becoming a manager or even working in the anime industry, checking localized text. You don't need to have an N1 certification in Japanese language. It is enough to be a translator in Japan with an N3 or N2 certification. Of course, depending on the technicality of the content you'll be translating, you may be required to be fluent, but don't worry about the N1 certification. It is really hard to pass in that exam, and surprise, surprise, Japanese people actually value more technical knowledge than certifications, especially in translation. So impress them with your portfolio or do a translation exercise for them. So to become a translator in Japan, first try to get a job as a translator at a Japanese company. These early on, you won't be working directly in the anime industry. You may be translating for a tech company, for example. It is recommended you are a native speaker or fluent in one of the following languages: English, French, German, or Chinese. These are some of the most important languages for Japanese companies, at least when they have to deal with foreign clients. That's your starting point as a translator. Being a native English speaker opens the doors to other opportunities more quickly than any other language. However, do know that depending on the company, they may be looking for different languages. As a translator for these or those companies, you will be translating documents, but you'll also be required to interpret during meetings. So while being a translator, try to make contacts with as many people as possible and attend anime and seiyuu industry events, anime conventions and the sort, while in Japan, to introduce yourself to potential clients. Introduce yourself as a translator for games localization or even anime projects or music. Keep nurturing those contacts and the opportunity to become a manager for seiyuu may arise. And how to become a sound engineer for anime or 2D music. If you want to join the animation industry as a director or sound engineer, the best way is to enroll in a technical course or take a degree at a Japanese university, as it will set you on that path more easily. University of Tokyo, University of Kyoto, and Waseda University do have good courses, welcoming for foreigners, and with classes both in Japanese and English, which can prove to be a good entry point to taking those courses or completing those degrees. This is a field in which there are many foreigners, so you'll feel more welcome. It is also an easier way to join the industry, and you can even pivot to working in seiyuu radio shows or do sound engineering for music by some of your favorite 2D music projects or seiyuu solo artists. The Hand That Feeds HQ as an example, talent agencies and music labels aren't all that open to foreigners. The Hand That Feeds HQ has been active for 12 years and in contact with seiyuu managers, talent agencies and music labels in Japan since 2017. In these years, I've learned that it is insanely hard to be taken seriously in Japan, especially as a foreigner. There is obvious fear on the side of Japanese talent agencies and music labels of engaging with international entities, regardless if it is a renowned YouTuber or a news and reviews website such as The Hand That Feeds HQ. They are under the misconception that only Japanese speak, write, and understand Japanese, and as such, even if you say you understand, they won't believe you. As such, interviews are usually a pain to do because you have to interview in Japanese, transcribe it in Japanese, and send it to the agencies to review. After they're okay, you have to translate to English and send to them for review again. They are really afraid we do not know their language, or, on the other hand, that foreigners may twist the words of their talents. Many talent agencies and music labels will reject interviews just because you're presenting yourself as a foreigner. And yes, you are required to do so, otherwise you can't even send an inquiry. Many attempts fall into silence. So, what to take from this experience tied up with everything else in this episode? Joining or being active in the animation and seiyuu industries is not easy. There are cultural and linguistic barriers to overcome. There is, in a way, disdain lingering in Japanese companies towards foreigners. It is hard to make a big impression. But with hard work and consistently making connections, yes, cold emailing people on their websites and LinkedIn profiles, has made it so that now the Hand That Feeds HQ is taken seriously by some managers, music labels, and yes, seiyuu. Regardless of the path you take, do know that foreigners are usually not taken into account for managerial roles of voice sectors, or even directors, since there are cultural barriers in the styles of directing. The path to entering the animation industry in Japan is a hard one and requires a lot of patience. First, focus on getting a certification N3 or N2 in the Japanese language. You do not need N1 to work in Japan as a translator, and find a job translating for a Japanese company. Then try to have as many contacts as you can while showing that you are a reliable translator and a good worker. The opportunity to work in the animation industry should present itself to you with time and hard work. But once again, it's not easy to become a SEIYUU manager. There is only one foreigner that has managed to become a voice sector manager or even a voice sector. There are very few. It is slightly easier to join as a sound engineer or a translator. So tell me, would you like to join the animation industry, and if yes, which job would you like to have in there? Let me know in the comments below. And remember, leave your comments as complex or as simple as they may be, and you can be featured on upcoming episodes of SEIYUU Lounge. Hit the subscribe button if you enjoyed this episode and don't want to miss the Hand That Feeds HQ's weekly male SEIYUU and music-related content. I'll return next week with another episode of SEIYUU Lounge. Thank you for listening and see you guys around.